Part 1. Read all words. Heel, hand, hold, hear, hike, mouth, thumb, tick, thing, pet, tree, tears, thin, thread, hurt, then, they, there, those, either, bed, cloth, with, breath, put, breath, put, hide, the, together, another, these, father, feather, smoother, that, a leader, rather, cloth, miss brother, cramped, home, Cambridge, smidge, remember, small, him, smart, team, mom, time, homemade, calm, Tom Mitcham, mother. Part 2. Read this twister tongue with 3 modes: slow, normal, and fast. Slow mode. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? Seashell by the seashore, and the shell of seashells by the shore are seashells for sure. A sailor went to sea to see what he could see, and all he could see was sea. Sick, hick, nick, six, slick, bricked, wick, picked, and stick. How many snack could a snack stalker stalk? If a snack stalker stalk snakes? 12 12 twigs. Imagine an imaginary manager managing in imaginary later, never weather better. A twaddle, battle, noodle, poodle, battle, paddle, mud, doodle, fuddle, wood, fox in, socks, sir. How much ground would a groundhog hog if a groundhog could hog ground? A groundhog would hog all the ground he could hog. If a groundhog could hog ground. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. A pack of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled pepper, where the pack of pickled pepper Peter Piper picked? Betty butter box some butter, but see the butter beaters. If I put my butter, it will make butter Peter. With a bit of butter will make my butter so better. So it was better Betty butter bought a bit of better butter. How much wood and woodchuck it a woodchuck called chuck wood? He would chuck, he would as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. I talk a talk, but the talk I talk wasn't the talk I talk. If the talk I talk had been the talk I wouldn't have talked I talk. Normal mode. I scream, you scream, well I scream for ice cream. Woozy Woozy was a bear. Woozy Woozy had no hair. Woozy Woozy wasn't very woozy, was he? Seashell, seashell by the seashore, and see the shell and the shell of seashell by the seashore are seashell of for sure. A sailor went to see what he could see, and all he could see was sea, and sea. Sick, hick, nick, sick, six, slick, bricks, with a picks and stick. How many snack could a snack stacker stack if a snack stacker snack? 12 twin, 12 twins, 12 twigs. Imagine an imaginary manager managing an imaginary managery. Lizard ladder never weather better. A tweedle battle noodle poodle paddle paddle poodle doddle paddle poodle fox in soxer. How much ground wool and groundhog hawk is a groundhog could hawk ground? A groundhog would hawk at the ground he could hawk. Is a groundhog could hawk ground. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled pepper. A pack of pickled pepper. Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled pepper, where the pack of pickled pepper Peter picked? Patty Potter bought some butter, but she said Potter Peter. If put my butter, it will make Potter Peter. So a bit of butter will make Potter. So I was Potter Petey butter bought a bit of Potter. How much would walk a woodchuck? Chuck if woodchuck could chuck wood. He would chuck, he would as much he could. And chuck as much wood as would chuck a wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood. I talk a talk with the talk I talk wasn't the talk I talk. If the talk I talk had been the talk I wouldn't have talk I talk. Fast mode. I scream, you scream, well I scream for ice cream. Woozy a bear was a bear. Woozy had no hair. Woozy wasn't very woozy, was he? Seashell by the seashore, and the seashell by the shore are seashell for sure. A sailor went to see what he could see, and he could see was sea. Sick, hick, nick, sick, click, bricks with a pick and stick. How many snacks could a snack stacker stack? Even a snack stacker snack a stack. 12 to into our twigs. Imagine an imaginary manager managing an imaginary managery. Lesser leader never weather better. A tweedle battle noodle puddle bottle poodle puddle woodle fox in sock it sir. How much ground would the groundhog hawk if a groundhog could hawk ground? A groundhog will hawk on the ground he could hawk. If a groundhog could hawk ground. Peter Pepper picked pack pepper, a pig pickled pepper, Peter Pepper picked. If Peter Packer a pack of pickled peppers, where's the pick of pickled peppers, Peter Pepper picked. Betty bought a box some butter, but she said butter Peter. If put on my batter, it will make a better Peter. But a bit of better butter will make butter better, so I was better Peter. Betty butter bought a bit better butter. How much wood will chalk if the woodchuck could chalk wood? He would chalk, he would as much he could, and chalk as much wood as much woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chalk wood. I thought and I thought I thought but the thought I thought wasn't the thought I thought if the thought I thought have been the thought I thought I wouldn't have thought I thought. Part 3. Read our story clearly. A long time ago, there lived a wealthy and affluent king in a faraway kingdom. He had a very beautiful daughter, and marriageable age named Avion. Avalon. All the young men in the country wanted to marry him, but she refused all offers of marriage. Most of the rich old men asked for her hand in marriage, but she called them old and ugly. Avalon was very proud and vain. In spite of repeated interestless, interested, interested, entreaties from her parents, she refused to marry any man from her land. She vowed to marry a rich prince from a faraway kingdom. Her prince will be the best looking man in the entire world. He will be strong and perfect in every day and capable of loving properly. So Avion, the prince of continued to disobey her parents, at which they were very much grieved. One day there was commotion within the village. What could be happening? People inquired. Not long after, the news got the palace. A very fine man had been seen in the market. She was better looking than any of the natives. Avion rushed to market at once, and directly she saw the most handsome man she had ever set her eyes on. She fell in love immediately and invited him to her house. The prince was delighted and went home with her. On his arrival, the handsome prince was introduced by Avion to her parents. The prince the prince immediately asked their consent of marrying their daughter. At the first they refused, as they didn't as they did not wish her to marry a stranger. But at last they agreed. He lived with Avion for 2 days in her parent house and then said he wished to take his wife back to his country, which was far off. To this prince readily agreed as he was such a fine man, but her parents tried to persuade her not to go. However, being a very headstrong, she made up her mind to go, and they started off together. It was said It was sad day for the king and the queen. After walking several days, Avion and her husband to crossed the border between the spirit land and the human land. Immediately they set foot in the spirit land. Strange things began to happen. First of all, one man came to the prince and demanded his legs, then another his head, and the next his body, and so on, until in a few days, minutes, in a few minutes, the prince was left with nothing but skulls. But the prince became terrified. The princess, the princess became terrified. She could not understand what had happened to her handsome prince. The prince then laughed at the princess and confessed and that the prince was no seeing him and his natural state. He had borrowed all his body parts from the other spirit so he would look human when he went to ask for her hand in marriage. In fact, his entire body consisted of only a human skull. The princess wanted to return home, but the school would not allow this and ordered her to go with him. When they arrived at school's house, they found his mother, who was a very old woman, quiet, incapable of doing any work. She could only creep about. Avion tried her best to help her and cooked her food and broke water and firewood for the old man. The old creature was very grateful for this attention and soon became a quiet fond of Avion. One day, the old man felt very sorry for Avion and and desired and desired to help her. She promised to send her back to her country as soon as possible, providing that she promised in the future she would obey her parents. The avion readily consented to do, and then the old man sent for the spider, who was a very clever hairdresser, and made him dress Avion's hair in the latest versions, latest fashion. She also present, presented, she also presented her with anklets and other things on account of her kindness. She then used her supernatural power to call the breeze of gently carry Avion to her father's kingdom. Soon afterward, the breeze deposited Avion outside her home and left her there. When the king and the queen saw their daughter, they were very glad as they had for some month given her up as lost. There was feasting and dancing throughout the kingdom for 8 days and a night. Afterward, the king passed a law and that parents should never allow their daughter married to stranger who come from far country. Then the prince from a neighboring village come to ask Avion hand in marriage, and she willingly consented and lived with him for many years and had many children.